with this session, this is something where you get the hands-on experience to build out what your resume looks like and or make edits to it, create it from the ground up, etc. We've worked with AthLife over the past couple of years, and they've done a great job working one-on-one with our members. And so we think this session will provide you with what you need to kind of get that resume where it needs to be. And excited to have Chris Manhertz on the call, as we've been able to work with him over the past couple of years for him and helping him gain professional experience.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valerie Ayer. I've been with AthLife for a little more than 10 years. And prior to that, I spent a lot of time on college campuses working with student athletes and support services. I also spent a few years in player engagement at the league office. And I'm really happy to be here with you guys today as we discuss resumes. So I'll turn it over to Tracy.
Hi everyone, my name is Tracy Moss. I'm one of the other AthLife advisors. I've been with AthLife about 6 years now, and prior to my time with AthLife, I was an advisor on campus. I was an academic advisor for student athletes for almost 10 years, and I'm also excited to be here. We know how important resumes are, and we're just glad that you set aside the time to spend with us.
And so Chris, why do you believe resumes are important?
I think even just to begin, it's almost like as if it's your stamp. It's a document that kind of amplifies who you are, and it highlights the skills and traits you're good at to a potential recruiter or an employer. So my biggest thing with resumes is just that it gives me an opportunity to brand myself. It gives me an opportunity to highlight who I am, the traits that I possess, the proficiencies I have, and also just giving confidence to potential employers that I'm the person that they're looking for.
As you prepare your toolkit, this with your LinkedIn profile and understanding what personal branding is like, you want to make sure that you can speak to your resume. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important that you actually sit down and put it together yourself. The information included, is who you are, like Chris said. And if you can't speak to it in a setting, for instance, if you happen to be in an interview one day, you're not going to represent yourself in the best way possible. So a resume is an important tool for sure. It may not be the thing that gets you the job, but a bad one will be a hindrance to actually getting the job.
So one of the common things that active players always ask is, what do I put on my resume? I haven't done anything. And that's certainly not true. Your professional athlete experience can absolutely go on your resume, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And also the stuff you're doing off the field, whether it's the volunteer work or if you have a nonprofit you're involved in, or any internship or externship opportunities, those things can all be listed as experience because they are professional experience. Even job shadows, it doesn't need to be a paid work opportunity to be on your resume. Anything that shows your skill set and your accomplishments that are relevant, that needs to be on your resume. Chris, could you tell us a little bit about how you chose to include stuff on your resume?
Well, from the beginning of probably 5 years in now, 5+ years in now, the only thing, along with obviously what we've done in college, however long each of us has played in college and had that experience, my first stab at it was taking advantage of the internships that's available through the NFLPA. And I can't even tell you guys how much things like that, slowly just build your resume. It takes nothing more than investing a little time in myself in the off season, whether that be a year ago I interned at Fox Sports. This year I interned at the NFLPA office. So those little things, makes the biggest difference. So it's almost like laying bricks in a way. It's almost like laying bricks for your future. And I would encourage a lot of guys to also network. These aren't really exclusive to, internships or certain events, but finding an opportunity to network with others that's in certain positions that may help you later can open up doors and opportunities for you to get that job shadowing opportunity, or to get that hands-on, work experience in whatever field you might want to, take advantage of.
So as you're building your resume, you'll get clued into a little bit more of the skill set that you have, because you'll be creating bullets that talk about the skills and accomplishments for each position that you've done. We also want to encourage you to use some of these other resources to discover the skills that you'll need in your future careers. Because we know you're all active athletes now, and we also know that part of Plan A is transitioning out of your sport and into your next sport. Your next career. So it's always a good time to start thinking ahead to what you might want to do next, so you can explore some of the skill sets that you'll need and fill in any blanks. So a few of the resources are listed here. So ONET Online, Career One Stop, and job descriptions. We'll talk a little bit more specific about ONET in just a little bit, but before we move there, I also want to talk about job descriptions. If you are curious on what's out there, it's always a good idea to start looking at some job descriptions, not with the intent to apply, but just to get an understanding of what they're looking for. What are the qualifications? What's the skill set? What are the activities associated with the jobs? The more familiar that you get with it, the better you can decide if that's a career path you want to take. And if it is, then you'll know where your gaps are. Like, do I need to finish my degree? Do I need a certification? Do I need some more experience managing? That kind of thing. So understanding what career path you want to take will help you to make decisions now with using your time wisely off the field.
The ONET and its sister website, Career One Stop, are government developed websites for the purpose of understanding the labor market. And so the ONET, just by itself, includes more than 1,000 job titles. And the information there is very in-depth. So any job that you've ever thought of, you can look it up on there, and you can learn anything you'd ever want to learn, including things like skills, abilities, educational requirements, credentials, what kind of interests that job tends to line up with. There's also a lot of self-assessments. So that tool, you can get lost in there if you'd like to. There's just lots of information. So we just wanted to make sure we highlighted it so that you can use it as a reference moving forward.
So this next slide is going to show you a little bit of ONET. What we did was we went on ONET and we selected the occupation of property manager. We did this because we know a lot of active players have dabbled in real estate, and we thought this would be a relevant choice for you guys. So looking at the property manager file on ONET, it'll list, one of the things it lists is activities. So this is a screenshot of the activities of a property manager. So when we're looking at these activities, you might think, oh, I've never done that. I can't do that job. But let's take a closer look and think about, direct financial operations. What might that really mean? What might be a comparable activity that you're doing as a pro athlete? So if you're managing your checkbook and your investments and everything, that's financial operations. You have experience doing financial operations. Don't cut yourself short. Or the other one, first on the list, direct facility maintenance and repair activities. If you own a couple properties or have done some flips or anything like that, that's that activity. That's facility management. That's taking care of property. So you've got to be open when you're looking at these activities. Don't think of them only in relation to the occupation that's listed, but also consider what it might mean more broadly and how that might apply to the things that you're doing right now.
There are those keywords or phrases that describe specific job requirements that a reader is looking for. It might be expertise or other credentials. For instance, if an future employer one day, they have to have someone who has a bachelor's degree in engineering. Well, that's going to be a keyword on that job description. But for now, When I speak about the reader, a reader may not be an employer for you for right now. It could be a member of your network. It could be a graduate school that you're applying to. It could be an externship host company. They're going to want to know what you bring to the table. You want to be able to articulate your skills and accomplishments using keywords. And so you can grab those keywords off the ONET, off the job description.
I think it's also important in knowing that it's not really the quantity of the words that you use, but it's more so the quality. And I think sometimes
Great point.
to think that, you know, the more words, the better. And sometimes it's the complete opposite. You know, it's the words that you're using. And, you know, at the end of the day, the main purpose of it is to amplify certain characteristics that you may already have.
Just to piggyback on what Chris said, and I think it's a really important point, it's not about the quantity and the length of your resume. Anyone want to guess the average time spent reviewing a resume? 7 seconds. And so it's really, really important that those words that Chris mentioned pop off the page to amplify those characteristics, skills, abilities that you bring to the table.
The basic format here, we're only really using 5 sections, including your name. Resumes aren't a one-size-fits-all. So as we talk more about that, we'll talk even more about keywords and tailoring your resume. The first section we're going to talk about briefly is a summary of qualifications or professional summary. This section gives the reader really just highlights highlights you, and it's got to be brief and it's got to give a punch. If somebody's reading your resume for 7 seconds, they're probably starting at the top and they're going down. So if they don't see what they want in that summary of qualifications, they might just stop. The work experience, this is going to be listed in reverse chronological order, which means the most recent work will be first. For you that are actively playing, that means your NFL experience will be first. The other experience. So you'll want to, again, reference your experiences that are relevant to the role you're seeking. Next, you know, it's likely that you'll need more than one resume. That one resume for you now is going to be that master resume, in which you include all of your accomplishments, all of your awards, all of your recognitions. You just pile it all in there. It's really a piece of record keeping and kind of personal history. But as you move into wanting to focus in on one occupation or one job that's going to be outside of sports, outside of football, you'll want to create a targeted resume. And this is usually more of your one-page resume loaded with those quality keywords that are really going to draw the attention and draw a direct correlation between the skills that you have and what the reader is looking for.
Should anything sports related be in the summary of qualifications?
Sure, it absolutely can. However, if your goal is to, your goal is probably going to be to highlight something that is transferable and not necessarily a on the field accomplishment, but depending on what it is, I'm sure that it could be.
Yeah, and I think further on that, I think it was highlighted earlier that the job description gives you the answer to the test, right? So an exercise you can do is go through a job description, highlight keywords for the job you want, highlight the keywords, and then put those words into your resume. So as you're building your resume, what sport-specific experience it answers the question, gives you the answer to the question, right? So do any of those speak to the specific skills that are in the job description? And if the answer is yes, then put it in there. If not, do the hiring manager or the person reading your resume a favor and don't include things in your resume. You can have a master resume that has everything, but don't include things that aren't relevant to the job because the reader's not going to care.
The first part, this next section is going to be your education, which typically will come after your experience. For many employers, education, as I mentioned, might just be checking a box. I know I have to, bachelor's degree required. So it makes sense that your experience is going to come before that. It is definitely a priority and you want that to shine. And then your education, which is absolutely important, is not a primary focus at the top of your resume. There are exceptions, but we're just speaking in general. This other section can have many different titles. Here we chose activities and awards. And I know you guys have heard some of these from previous learning labs. So, and Tracy's mentioned some already. Volunteering, many employers will consider unpaid experience on par with paid experience. So dive right in and highlight that. Awards and recognitions, you can focus on athletic and non-athletic experience, particularly on a master resume, since it's not targeted for one audience. And then leadership skills. To include these, team captain work, if you were, you know, in a student organization on campus, this is important. As athletes, you don't have a lot of time to do extra things outside of sport. So if you've been recognized on campus for your leadership abilities or what have you, make sure you include it. Be sure to save your resume in a format that you'll be able to share, usually a PDF format. Make sure you give it a file name that allows you and others to find it. So maybe it's your last name, first name, resume, something like that. When it comes time for you to share that resume, you might have sent it to someone in your network and they know that they have it, but they can't find it. Maybe they downloaded it, maybe it's somewhere on their desktop, but if your name is in it and the word resume, it's much more likely that they will find it.
Yeah, so we've been throwing around the word transferable skills quite a bit, and just to focus in on that for a little bit, transferable skills simply means a skill that transfers from one type of job to another. So we started off by naming the 3 skills that have made you a successful athlete. Those skills that you've named also will help you in your next career. So those are called transferable skills. Those are the things that when people are asking you what your professional experience is, that you can lean on and say, you know, I have discipline, I've worked in a high pressure environment, I know how to learn from failure, excuse me, I have strong communication skills, that kind of thing, because they are skills that are relatable to that career. So as we're thinking through this, what are some other skills and how will they transfer to your career, to your next career? So Chris, if you don't mind, if I can put you on the spot here, can you name one of the skills and how that might transfer over into another career?
Coachable. I think being coachable might, and it will span much more further than the football field. And what I kind of mean by coachable is, do you have the ability to learn, adapt, and adjust? Those 3 things off the bat could be something that a potential employer or somebody that's trying to hire you might look at and understand and realize that, okay, maybe Chris is not really up to speed with this, but does he have the ability to learn? Is his turnover quick? Does he have the consistency and the coachability, so to speak, to adjust and assimilate to whatever's being taught? Or if you do something wrong, can you fix that?
Mm-hmm.
How quick is the turnover?
Accepting criticism and growing in it. That's a skill that athletes really hone in on, and unfortunately those outside of athletics don't get a chance to practice as much as we do as athletes, learning from criticism and growing based on feedback from others. So great example, Chris, thank you. So this is an example I created of an NFL player who's looking to become a property manager. So you'll see that the employer name is the NFL, and then the job title is professional athlete. And I've listed the names of the teams. We do that because sometimes a person's a fan or from the area, and it helps clue them in to who you are, and it gives you something extra fun to talk about. But what's most important here are the bullet points. So if you look through these bullet points, you'll see how I used some of the skills from the previous slide and use them to help me create bullet points to explain this gentleman's experience as an athlete. So that first bullet, studied scouting reports and worked with coaches and teammates, that speaks to communication skills, that speaks to active listening, all those things that we were just talking about. The second bullet, solved problems on the field in a diverse and quick-paced environment. That talks about what our gentleman volunteer just shared with us. You know, being on the field and making those decisions on game day, that's a bullet. That's something you can claim as a skill and an accomplishment. And then the third bullet is volunteered in the local communities. So this is to speak specifically to your interest in real estate. So knowing that this gentleman was going to be applying for property management type positions, we included a bullet that spoke to his interest in real estate to show that even while he was playing, he was using that platform and learning more about real estate and getting more involved in his communities. And so these bullet points are your opportunity to tell them in their language what it is that you do as a pro athlete and why you're qualified. So it's very important it's very helpful to you to include some bullets under pro athlete to show that it is relevant professional experience.
Connor and Carrie, we wanted to ask you guys right before we finish up, how important this piece is of being error-free. What do you guys do when you get a resume that doesn't meet your standard? What do you do with it?
One of the statements that was said at the top of the hour was that a resume is not going to get you the job. It can keep you from a job. And in my 15 years on campus and now 6.5 years with AthLife, I can confirm that to be true, at least for me. I have seen some excellent candidates come through that have the skills. They did not take the time to confirm that their resume was error-free. And in the work that we do and that I did when I was on campus, attention to detail is really, really important. So if someone didn't take the time to double check their resume to make sure that it was error-free, they weren't really the person that we wanted. So a quick answer to your question, Val, is that resumes that have been presented that are full of errors have ended themselves in the trash can, not the to interview pile.
I'll add to that. So I think one thing we might be able to underestimate with resumes is the opportunity to show initiative with them. And so I think when I review resumes for several different roles at the NFLPA over the years, it's been easy to see those people who I think are going to be willing to go the extra mile and take the initiative to just get the projects done and follow up because their resumes are full, they're accurate, they look really good, versus the ones that aren't as complete or really aren't conveying a lot of what we talked about in this session in terms of matching up your keywords and your skills to what we actually do and what the roles are calling for. So I think that's a really good indication, again, to tell and what I use as well. And so when there are errors, it's easy for me to make an assumption about the type of worker that you could be, honestly.
Thank you, Connor. Just to piggyback on something you said, it really drew my attention about initiative and a great motivator for having your resume up to date. You know, if someone lets you know, hey, we just posted a position on Friday, get me your resume, and it takes you a week to get it to them, that's also going to be going to reflect poorly on you. So that's just another reason to keep it up to date. And making a few tweaks is not going to take you all week, but starting from scratch or totally redoing it will.
So we said at the beginning that one of the goals was to leave this session today with some better understanding of what makes for a good resume, and then also some real tools to help you refine your resume. A good resume is a tool. I don't know that I need to go into any more detail on that. I would highlight something that Chris said earlier. Your resume represents you. It represents your personal brand. So be authentic with your resume. Be you. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're in an interview and you cannot speak to something on your resume, or that it's presented in a way that's not comfortable for you. If you ask 10 people about your resume and ask for feedback, you're going to get 10 different responses. At the end of the day, it's yours. Have it be yours and represent you in a really positive way. Lay the bricks. Another nugget that Chris shared with us earlier. Unpaid resumes, unpaid experience, build resumes too. Those experiences that you take advantage of in the off season are what will build your resume over time. So chip away, taking advantage of those opportunities. Transferable skills are valuable. There are many articles out there that talk about we want to hire athletes. Athletes are on the top of the list. And the reason is because the transferable skills that you bring to the table. So make sure you spend the time to highlight how your unique transferable skills are directly related to the job that you're seeking. And then take the time to dive into the ONET. As Val said, be careful. You can spend hours on there. It can be a rabbit hole, so much good information. So take advantage of that resource. We will provide in the post-webinar email that you'll get information about accessing the ONET and some additional tools that you can use to continue your work on your resume. For those of you who are seeking more, you've been on the 3 learning labs, or today was your first one, and you want to keep doing the work, and there is more work to do. We have an online tool, an online resource, self-paced e-learning on various topics that you can take advantage of. If you're interested, shoot me an email. We'll get you enrolled in that course or courses so that you can check those out. A lot of good information in there. Want to turn it over to Chris for any final words of wisdom that you have for us.
I'll just encourage all the guys to take this opportunity to, work on yourselves. You guys just showing up here right now, participating in this is a great first step in just utilizing your time wisely while we have it. I don't think it's ever too early to really think about what's next, or laying down the bricks to figure out what's going to be ahead for your future. So I'll just encourage guys during this time just to utilize their time wisely, and don't take these type of things for granted.